Please welcome up Dan Gillmor.
Thank you. Amazing number of people this early. It's great. I'm happy. So I'm going to whip through a bunch of stuff. I've been really enjoying watching everything here. And what I'm going to talk about is how journalists might be using this, but we're not sure who the journalists are anymore. I think it's how everyone, but the traditional media have not in general done that well with the newer location-based stuff. And I just got a few ideas of things that both traditional and new media folks could be working on. The New York Times stuff yesterday was dazzling. I think they could go a lot further too, and I'm sure they will. Just pointing out that place has obviously been central to the whole field of journalism, both the Dateline and the traditional locator maps telling you what the location was of the story, and then things like election maps. This is from 2000, the election. And then other deeper stuff that's going on in traditional journalism. This is from the Miami Herald in the 1990s. After Hurricane Andrew, they did an analysis of destruction in the neighborhoods in Miami and discovered that some of the newer neighborhoods were flattened and where new construction was taking place, recent construction, and things like right next to them were still standing. And this led to a series of articles that showed that the building inspectors had been getting bribed to not inspect the new construction, et cetera, and the Herald ended up with a Pulitzer Prize. This was taking data and location in a really interesting and better direction. This process is going on, and Nate Silver at 538 has really gone deepest, I think, with the data mining in the election field. He's created a whole media operation just doing this, and I love this going after everything and aggregating into something that's valuable. Other things that are happening that I'm particularly interested in are the use of location combining with other things, including people. And we'll come back to that in a second. But this is a map of Tunisian prisons created by human rights activists, some freelance journalists, and very key to that, some former prisoners. And the government of Tunisia thought some of these locations was a secret, and of course not a secret to the people who had been in them. And this is a profound act of journalism, and one that I think we should be thinking about more. Here's a less profound act of journalism, but one that I absolutely love, which is the pothole map of Bakersfield. Done by the local newspaper, where there's not enough staff at any newspaper, no matter how big, to go map every pothole, but there's enough people who read the newspaper even now to go and say, here's the potholes in my neighborhood. They haven't gone far enough. Nobody has gone far enough with this concept. The government, the open, the DIYcity.org. Well, imagine if you did this database and then connected it straight to the city government and then to the people again and said, so let us know when the pothole's fixed. And then we're going to start mapping which neighborhoods get potholes repaired more quickly. Obviously, the wealthy neighborhoods are going to get potholes fixed more quickly than the less wealthy ones. And that's real journalism, too. This is more than just a gimmick. This is something that can be wonderful for the news organization of whatever kind, whether it's new or old, and the people who live there. The other thing that I love, this is a thing that you may have seen of bringing the data to life. This is the spread of Walmart. It's going year by year. And the years are going by at the same rate. The deployment is getting more rapid. If this doesn't tell a story, kind of a grim one, in my opinion, I don't know what does. I'm dazzled by this and what's possible with this. I got so depressed I stopped at 1995. This is something my students just did in the class we ran this spring, basically creating a site for people to do pickup sports and organize themselves. There's no organized way to do it otherwise, kind of a meetup meets mapping thing, and it's a thing they're going to take and do further in the fall. But it's really the use of location in an organizing way. Probably the most important person in the journalism field right now in the area of mapping and data is Adrian Hollivati, who was with the Washington Post and has a site called everyblock.com. I'm showing you the info, but it's all based on a map as a dashboard. And you put in or click on a local address, and you get this amazing amount of stuff he's scraped from various sources and pulled in through APIs. And what he's doing in the cities that Everyblock serves is to give people the most hyper-local information they can, and soon he will add what people contribute to it themselves. But it's astounding to me that someone like Adrian couldn't make this happen inside of a news organization, that he had to finally go and do it himself. I'm just sort of scratching surface here when thinking about where we can go with it, but the whole notion of location plus time, a date stamp and a location stamp, pretty amazing, and the journalistic potential gets really out there, and it's I think most profoundly that I've seen so far in the Kenyan elections recently that were violent. People used a combination of mapping, of mobile devices and other things to pull together what was clearly the best journalism about what happened there. And again, something that US organizations, news organizations, in fact most global traditional ones have failed to adopt in the way that they can. There are lots of great experiments, but this shows the power of it. Behind those pins in that map, those little pins showing fires are enormously deep and valuable information. A project we did with some students from Berkeley a couple of years ago when I was teaching a class there with a friend, Bill Gannon, formerly from Yahoo. We took some students to New Orleans. Some researchers at Dartmouth had mapped the housing conditions in a district of New Orleans called Gentilly. We went down there with students and some cameras and started comparing the condition of the house in the map they'd created with the conditions we saw with the cameras, and put that on a map. And then we did another thing to try and take that a little deeper, which is recognizing that this is not about houses, but about people. So we started interviewing people there and asking them their stories in a way that we could add into a database. The next step that we'd like to do, I still have to raise money to do it, is to put up a front end and then give the people of New Orleans, of Gentilly District, a way to tell their own story. It's their story, it's not ours. And again, news organizations of all sorts should be doing these kinds of things. This is about the location in a pretty profound way. A simple thing we did this spring at Arizona State. In downtown Phoenix, a small area, there's a first Friday of the month, they have a thing called the Art Walk. And there's a bunch of galleries around and little events. So we did something that was trivially simple, but it was easy and it worked. These are the G1 phones. Google gave us a bunch to play with, and T-Mobile some service. We made a little email set up through Flickr where you just email the picture in, put a little text on it saying what it is, and Flickr understands if it's geotagged, they pull it in and create a map out of it. So unbelievably simple, and you can see it's pretty raw. But we, in about 3 hours of 8 people, had 125 pictures that were annotated by geography and time of this one Friday art walk. So the next thing we're going to do this fall is build another front end and make it easier for people other than us to add their own data to this with any phone that has GPS, which is increasingly every phone. Another possibility here is, crisis information. This is from a couple of years ago in San Diego at a exercise that included military and companies like Microsoft and Google and some academics and Red Cross and other NGOs. We basically were scenario of rebuilding communications after a disaster. And my little piece of it was to create something with mobile, and I thought, well, let people annotate what they're seeing into the map. Again, with GPS now, this is trivial. It was not trivial then. It was kind of hard. But what if we had already set up and people understood that when there was the next earthquake, they would send in both text and photos of the condition right there? And so that we could get a quick filled-in map about what was going on in every neighborhood around. It would help a lot of people, including the emergency responders, to know where the worst damage was. This would be pretty valuable. Another thing that I'm blown away by is, these don't just have GPS in them. They know what direction the phone is pointing, because there's a compass. So add heading, you get things like this wonderful star map. My favorite part of the star map is, you go up there, you see what's up there, but if you point it down, you see the star constellations from the southern hemisphere, which you don't see. But the idea of combining this with direction, that gets pretty cool. And there's an app for this, called Wikitude, of people, again, annotating, but using the compass heading as part of the annotation. That's got journalistic potential. And I'm thinking about an experiment we'll do probably in Phoenix again or in San Francisco this summer to work on it. So obviously there's a great big commercial potential in all this. And when you start combining things like the barcode readers and others, I guess I end up thinking maybe the journalism field could use this as a way of replacing some of the revenue they've lost because all the advertising has run away, and increasingly the readership. But if you provide services to people that they can use in the community, maybe that'll add something that replaces what's being lost by missing the advertisers. I don't know. And I suspect that given the traditional conservatism of media companies, that other people will do it first and better. But there's still plenty of potential to be the aggregator in a community, whoever wants to do it, and creating value in other ways. So things that I'm thinking about for experiments really involve this idea of mobility in particular, but some events like move in time and space. And I don't know quite how to do that. I don't know how we're going to do it. I do know that the new OS rev in the G1 phone adds video. The iPhone has video if you jailbreak it. The Nokia phones are fabulous for video. If we get the coordinates into the metadata and start populating maps with events that move time and space, I think we're going to be able to cover, as journalists, we're going to be able to cover stuff in ways that we've never done before. And it won't be just us doing the coverage. It'll be everybody in the community if we give them a way to do it, and keeping in mind that having the coordinates from the GPS is pretty good for the notion of, well, is it actually happening, as opposed to somebody telling you it's happening with just a photo that they say is taken in a particular place but may not be. That raises, of course, the next question, which is that how are we going to verify? And part of journalism, I think, is to make sure it's true. The folks who like to screw things up are hard at work, and this is one way they're hard at work. They're going to start spoofing the GPS. I don't know what we'll do about that. I probably will have other ways to unspoof it. But when it comes to doing journalism, if we don't try to verify what we've done or what we've found or what we see, then we're not going to get this right. So anyway, that's a sort of a broad view of a waterfront. I'm incredibly jazzed about what's going on. And I have to tell you that every app that I've seen here, every demonstration, could be applied to the field of journalism. Everything you're doing fits perfectly into journalism in so many ways. So with that, that's how you can reach me if you want to either help me out with some ideas for experiments. I'm all ears for getting your ideas on what we can do to help improve community information at every level. Thanks a lot.